All right. So today's going to be lesson 4, think win-win. But what I want to do, I want to touch slightly on the last lesson. Okay. The last lesson was a big one. You guys remember your homework assignment. Okay. And every week you're getting these crazy homework assignments. This week you'll be pretty relieved. It's going to be a much easier homework assignment, but we'll get to that at the end of the call. But you guys were to fill out like the ultimate schedule. What I said, like Apollo Ono showed his schedule, and it was clear. If this dude does all the things that he has in his calendar, there's no way he's going to Vancouver not medaling. You can't work that hard. You can't be that focused. You can't be that diligent and not come out on top. I mean, so that's our challenge. That was the homework assignment. The one thing I don't think I did a very good job on the last call, okay? There was just so much information, and I think I was trying to spit it all in 90 minutes. I think I could have went on for 2.5 hours if I had the time. But the relationship between the compass and the calendar, I don't think I really hit that. And so I want to hit that, and then we'll get into habit 4 here, okay? So, and how I even teach it in our business. I mean, our reps have a goal sheet, okay? Every week our reps have a goal sheet. I don't know anybody who doesn't do that. I mean, we're all doing that. That's one of the big value propositions that we have in our business is people come in and we get them goal-oriented. We get them focused on accomplishing things and taking forward steps, and that's awesome. That's exactly how I look at the compass. So even my goal sheet that I give for my leaders is very compass oriented. At the top of the goal sheet, go figure, it says sharpen the saw. What are you doing this week to grow physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, and spiritually? That's on the goal sheet. That's also on my compass. So when I get into my weekly planning, this little pyramid looks familiar. All right, I mean, here's some habit 2 stuff, begin with the end in mind. Then we got some goals and weekly planning, daily planning. When I get into that weekly planning piece, I start with the compass. I fill out the compass. And then as I'm filling out the compass, it's then getting the big rocks into the calendar. So those 2 pieces go side by side. I don't start planting things into the calendar. No. I start with the compass. The compass is what leads the calendar. So every week, as I did my weekly planning, this is where I'm like, oh, gee, I got to mention this in the start of habit 4. Because, again, I don't think I did that. I don't think I explained it well enough. When I get into the weekly planning, all I'm doing is I get into the weekly compass. I've got my 9 roles. I've got Jamie the consultant, Jamie the ICL owner, Jamie the father, Jamie the husband, and so on and so forth. As I'm filling out that compass, and how can I be a rock star this week as a father, as I'm thinking through that and as I'm writing that down, it's then and only then getting planted as a big rock into my calendar. Does everybody get that? Does everybody understand? I just want to make sure I got clarity because I don't think I hit that last week. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods, so I hope so. If you have questions, feel free to hit me up on that, but that's really important stuff. Otherwise, you can just get busy filling up a calendar. No. That's the compass, the values, the begin with the end in mind, the important stuff, the big rocks, that's compass. And then the compass gets transferred into the calendar. I own that compass for 1 hour of the week. So I have 168 hours, just like everybody else. I own it. I'm the architect. I feel great after I've done it. I plant it in the calendar, and now the calendar owns me for the next 167 hours. Discipline, high amounts of discipline, following that calendar that I was the architect to build. So that's the relationship between the compass and the calendar. You can't do one without the other. They're a package deal. That was the rub I had with the Franklin Covey app right? When I went electronic after doing the Franklin Covey system for so many years with their calendar, their compass, and paper, I'm like, oh man, the app sucks. Like, where's the compass and where's the calendar? Like, it wasn't interacting the way I needed. And that's why I created a compass on my notes app. That's my compass on my notes app. So my compass follows me wherever my iPhone goes, wherever my computer goes. I've got my compass and I've got my digital calendar that I can transfer compass information into the calendar. So anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I apologize if I'm going too much on this, but again, these are big muscles you guys are learning and building during the hiatus, and I want to make sure that you really get this thing right. And if you guys get habit 2 and habit 3 right, coming out of the hiatus, you are in great shape, in my opinion. You're in great shape. All right. So now we shift gears and we're getting into the public victories. So this is interesting. Here's where the book shifts gears. All right. Habits 1, 2, and 3 are the private victories. And then habits 4, 5, 6 are the public victories. So I'm going to read some material straight out of the book just to get our minds ready for habit 4 here. And I love habit 4. I can't wait to get into this habit 4 stuff. But let's again just get the concept. Imagine somebody who hasn't read the book, who doesn't get the habit of habit 1 as an example, the habit of being proactive, that there are no victims. You can't have a victim mindset if you're proactive. Somebody who is a victim, somebody who doesn't buy into that, well, you're dependent. Stephen Covey makes an argument. You're not independent yet. You're depending on other people. You're depending on the weather. You're depending on the climate. So dependence is the paradigm of you. This is right out of the book. You take care of me. You didn't come through for me. I blame you for the results. Habits 1, 2, and 3 lead to independence. I go from a dependent to an independent. Independence is the paradigm of I. I can do it. I am responsible. I am self-reliant. I can choose. And then we now transition into the paradigm of we, interdependent. It's the paradigm of we. We can do it. We can cooperate. We can combine our talents and create something greater together. Okay, so it's the paradigm of you, dependence. You know, you take care of me. You know, to me, I'm independent to interdependent. Here's what Stephen Covey says. We'll hop into the video shortly after. Interdependence is a choice only independent people can make. I'm going slow through this because this piece is heavy. Dependent people cannot choose to become interdependent. They don't have the character to do it. They don't own enough of themselves. Like, man, you think in today's day and age, Stephen Covey gets some major criticism for saying that, but I believe it to be true. Interdependence is a choice only independent people can make. Dependent people cannot choose to become interdependent. They don't have the character to do it, nor do they own enough of themselves. They don't own enough of themselves. Well, who owns me if I don't own myself? Again, you're dependent. Other people own you. Your feelings, your moods, your appetites. I mean, it's dependent on other people. So how can you become interdependent? Again, you think about it, how this book even has so much value to us. We're all into the team building business. We're all into this we thing. We're not into this individual producer gunslinger kind of business. I'm not talking to a bunch of realtors here that are going to be self-employed and live in the paradigm of just me for the rest of your lives. You're trying to build teams here. So the goal is to become interdependent, but you've got to become independent first. It says you cannot have the fruits without the roots. I like that. Nice little rhyme game going on here. Private victory precedes public victory. Self-mastery and self-discipline are the foundation of good relationships with others. Some people say that you have to like yourself before you can like others. I think that idea has merit, but if you don't know yourself, if you don't control yourself, if you don't have mastery over yourself, it is very hard to like yourself except in some short-term psych-up superficial way. The first 3 habits deal with self-mastery. They move a person from dependence to independence. They're the private victories, the essence of character growth. Private victories precede public victories. You can't invert that process any more than you can harvest a crop before you plant it. As you truly become independent, you have the foundation for effective interdependence. You have the character base from which you can effectively work on more personality-oriented public victories of teamwork, cooperation, and communication in habits 4, 5, and 6. All right, you ready for some videos here, Mr. Covey? All right, let's get some video action going on. Let's get the popcorn. Here we go. Okay, so independence, 1, 2, and 3. And here we are today, habit 4. So the next couple weeks, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll close off with 7.
Now what we're doing is looking at how the private victory helps to produce the public victories, that is, in our relationships with others. And this is where habits 4, 5, and 6 are involved. Habit 4, as you know, is to think win-win. Habit 5, to seek.
Hey, just a quick thing. There's some background noise. Please mute your phone, guys. Please make sure your phones are muted. Thank you.
First to understand, then to be understood. And habit 6 is to synergize. So, do you want to come up and help me a minute? Look strong and healthy. You also have a very good-looking head. Ron, have never lost an arm wrestle. Okay. And I don't intend to now. You're either going to be down there or I'm going to be down there. Okay? Now, see this triumvirate right there? Yes. They're going to fund this exercise so that if he puts me down here, he gets the dime. Okay? Can the 3 of you have pockets that deep? Let's stand over here a little more. And if I put you down here, that means you give me the dime. Fair enough? You can draw on all of those behind you. All right, now brace yourself, Ron. Put your elbows close together. Okay. Now, you keep track. You tell us when to start, all right? What's your name? Colleen. You tell us when to start and give us 15 seconds, all right? Now, if he happens to put me down twice, he gets 2 dimes. So keep track of how many times he puts me down or I put him down. Okay, give each other the intimidating stare. All right. Okay, wait, start equal. All right, tell us when to start.
Start.
It's faster if we both win.
Yes, I see.
I mean, literally, see, everything communicates war, contest, win-lose. So, while he's thinking win-lose, you think win-win. Habit 5 You always seek first the interest of the other. See, so we start with tension, then let him win. And let him win again. So gradually he starts to learn what's truly efficient. He learned fast, but most people, seriously, I've had some situations where they just literally hold me down. And I say to them, let's let you win again. And one said to me, no way. I mean, seriously, win-lose poisons the mind. You don't trust anything, see? Habit 4, think win-win, lies at the very heart of all relationships. Think win-win is the habit of mutual benefit. It's the habit of the golden rule. It's the habit of abundance. The underlying paradigm or principle is abundance. There is plenty out there and to spare. So you don't have to be threatened by the strengths of other people. You can nurture competency around you higher than your own. It doesn't threaten you. You can share knowledge. You love to share knowledge. You can share recognition, gain, profit. But if people derive their sense of worth from being compared, from the external, from the social value system out there, how well they stack up, they're always in a state of anxiety. They're always studying the pecking order. They're concerned about how they're dressed, how they look. They're into posturing, and they are threatened by competency around them. They feel that if they share knowledge, they lose unique advantage. It gives others the same awareness they have. They lose some power. If they share power, they have less. It's like a piece of pie. There's only so much. If you get the recognition, I may not get it. If I share gain or profit with you, we will have less. It's the paradigm of scarcity, not the paradigm of abundance. Most people have never had profound experiences with win-win people. They don't really believe there's such a thing as win-win. It's either you win or you lose. You're either tough or you're soft. You're strong or you're weak, see? They think in dichotomies, either or. Those people will inevitably produce politicized cultures where politics run things, reading tea leaves, social inventions, natural laws will not govern. Or they will become martyrs. They'll go for lose-win, particularly among the so-called important people. And then they'll often take out their energy on the ones that they can control, so that they're lose-win above, win-lose below. What happens at the side all depends on the moods, the ego. What happens in the marriage, is it equal? Is it unequal? What happens with the kids? What about your employees? Can you begin to see that the roots of the win-win mindset comes deep out of the private victory? If the private victory is real and sincere, you're at peace. You're centered. You're anchored. You're rooted. You're established. Your ego is not involved. Down deep, you're invulnerable. So you can afford to be vulnerable on the surface of your life. That's why that private victory is so foundational. Habit 4, to think win-win, comes from the principle and paradigm of abundance, not scarcity, meaning the pie gets larger and larger and larger. Why? Because through the interaction on a win-win basis, a transformation begins to take place in our natures to where we tap into more creativity, more resourcefulness, more ingenuity, more wisdom, more intelligence, deeper and deeper into the bowels of the organization, deeper in our marriage, in our family life, causing synergy to take place where the whole is truly greater than the sum of the parts, and the wealth increases, the knowledge increases, the power increases, and the very fear is unfounded. Both are self-fulfilling prophecies, however. Whatever paradigm you believe in will produce the behavior to validate the paradigm, the perception. If you have the attitude of thinking win-win, habit 4, and the skill, the method of habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, you will create such interaction, such mutual understanding, that it leads to the fruit, synergy, new insights, new learnings, new heights. It all has to start with the person. They have to begin to say, I'm going to go for win-win with people. One man said to me, Stephen, come on. I mean, the world isn't like that. I know this sounds good, but really, this is so idealistic and you know, I like it, but it's really not like that. I said, well, why don't you go for win-lose? He said, well, most of the time we do. Or lose-win. Sometimes we have to do that, but it is a competitive world. It isn't a cooperative world. I mean, I think you're living too much in the ivory tower of theory and abstraction. I said, well, I better listen to you a little more. Okay, he said, I'll tell you. He said, we tried to go for win-win. We listened to your counsel and tried to practice it. In fact, just recently, we were renegotiating our lease arrangements with the mall operators and owners. And we had a win-win attitude. We were open, we were conciliatory. They saw that as weakness, as softness, and they moved in, and they took us to the cleaners. Why did you go for lose-win? We didn't, we went for win-win. I thought you said they took you to the cleaners. Yeah, they did. In other words, you lost and they won. That's right. Well, what's that called? And it was if lights went on. I did. I went for lose-win. I didn't go for win-win. Lose-win is not win-win at all. See, people who think in dichotomies believe that lose-win, being nice, being soft, is win-win. My friends, win-win is so much tougher than win-lose. Why? In the early stages, you have to be tough on yourself to cultivate the empathy, the sensitivity, the openness, the consideration, at the same time, to not capitulate. What have we been calling that balance of courage and consideration? Maturity. And what is maturity a product of? Integrity. Being principle-centered, integrated around principles. Can you see why win-win is the fourth habit, not the first or the second? Can you see why it follows self-mastery? Win-win means we consent together. If you agree to disagree, is that not a win-win situation? We call it no deal. We agree to disagree agreeably. It's not going to work out. We won't hire you. You don't want to join us. You fully understand what expectations are. We understand what your needs and expectations are, and you can see that we're going in different directions. Let's agree to disagree agreeably. I would put no deal as one of the transactional options. We transacted. No deal on this one. Maybe we can come together at a later time. We transacted, see? The problem is, many situations, you don't have those options. It's hard to go for no deal with a child. It's hard to go for no deal with an employee who's been there for, say, 15 years. That would be essentially win-lose to the employee, just to go for no deal. Now, if you could come up with a no-deal option that has the elements of win-win in it when the separation takes place, so that the person feels like that was an honest and equitable and fair settlement, and you feel the same way, then that is carrying no deal in a situation where you're locked in without any other options to a successful win-win conclusion. I'm telling you, no deal is one of the most liberating options imaginable. I'll tell you why. Look, let's say I'm trying to interact with somebody on a very tough situation. Say this gentleman here. And I say to him right up front, if we can't work this out, you know, maybe we should work out the best no-deal arrangement possible. But I really want to go for win-win. Let me listen to you first. I need to understand how you see it. I then want to be understood. I see. Well, no deal's always an option. I can be very open. I don't have to manipulate. You'll have a quality of a relationship. You'll have, hopefully, a synergistic solution to problems, the spirit of consensus in the culture, the spirit of synergy and decision. That's the end in mind. It's not that I got my way or he got his way. Now, if I'm deeply committed to win-win or no deal, I can be so open and honest, I don't have to have hidden negotiation techniques. I can just say, that's not a win as I see it, but I need to understand more. Why it's such a win? I see. Then he tries to understand me, and as we interact back and forth, something dynamic happens that is absolutely magical in its effect upon the human spirit. Gradually, we conclude, no deal is best. Or, we've come up with something that is so much better than what you and I initially thought of. Very few people have had profound scripting in win-win. How many of us here have had scripting, that is, socializing processes from many experiences in many settings toward win-lose? How many have been scripted or mentored a little more toward lose-win? How many have been scripted that when you really get into interdependent situations where you have to cooperate in order to accomplish a commonly desired goal, that the best you can come up with, realistically, is compromise? How many have been scripted in that way? We're talking here about these scripting sources where people get their models and their mentors. Entire cultures, entire groups or organizations, not just individuals, script. You almost get absorbed into the milieu, the climate of an organization or a family, and a lot of people never even think about it. It's the air they breathe. They never question it. It's like the pair of glasses. You never really question the lens. That's literally how the scripting toward win-lose or lose-win, or just the kind of narcissistic, selfish approach of win starts. Let's just look at some of those. First, the family. Particularly if love is given conditionally. In most people's lives, they've been powerfully scripted toward win-lose. The key scripting, the key mentoring and modeling is in the first few years with the family. That's why I often say to parents that the kindest thing that a husband or a wife can do for their children is to treat the husband or the wife, the spouse, with tremendous respect and love and consideration, and to model in the home a win-win approach to problem solving rather than a fighting approach or a flighting approach, kind of giving up. Always be grateful for the child that tests you the most, because it's that child that enables you to show unconditional love, love without condition. And when the other children sense that, They too know they are loved unconditionally. But if you love conditionally, and you've got one that really tests you to the very limits, and you, in a sense, give in to a win-lose spirit, or a lose-win spirit to where you just kind of bag the child, just have your way, do your thing, or whatever, you've instantly communicated to the rest, when push comes to shove, if it gets too far, you too will be loved conditionally. And the root of unconditional love is so basic to the concept of the abundance mindset, see, to where your security comes from within instead of from without, where you compare it to other people. Because if you're constantly in a state of comparison, then obviously you're going to be scripted emotionally toward win-lose. So basic. And that's in the family. And there are so many things you can do in the family. The most foundational one is how you treat your spouse. And then how you treat the child that tests you the very most. Then do everything you can to create a win-win approach in all that takes place. We used to do our family work parties on Saturday morning. So we'd set a goal to have so much done by a certain time, and that everyone would do what's necessary, and then we would have a special kind of party or some reward. We'd go do something as a family. In bowling, we would go for a family score instead of just for individual scores. There are so many ways you can start to inculcate the spirit of win-win. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a place also for some parlor games and competition. The key thing is that there's respect for both forms of human interaction. They each have their place in life, but let's not push out the interdependency and the cooperation in the name of everything is a big competition. I would say that if you're in the school business, or if you could influence the school business, to try to get a spirit of teamwork at school. Get people to work as teams instead of individually only. I'm not against individual work as well, that's important. But also teamwork, where they learn to interact with other people and to come up with better solutions. And I would do away with all normal distribution curves. I'd have people either be graded against a standard which was clearly communicated, in which you as a teacher said, my job is to help you. My job is not to judge you, it's to help you reach the standard. A grade will come out in terms of that standard, but my job is to help every one of you get an A. But a lot of people were raised, in a sense, in a school where collaboration and cooperation was called cheating. And they're getting programmed toward win-lose right in the school. The problems in society are problems of interdependency. They really are. Are they not? Think about it. Think of every field of human endeavor. So I would say, try to influence schools toward teams, teamwork, more cooperation. So the application of this way of thinking at home, think of all of the different ways at school, and also the way they relate to their peers. Avoid comparison languages between people. You're better, you're prettier, you're more handsome, you're the one that stood out. Just kind of avoid comparisons. And yet most of us have been powerfully raised in this kind of win-lose scripting where criticisms, complaining, and comparison and competition were just the way things are. How many can relate to that? See, most of us can. Oh, athletics. Let me just mention a couple there. I saw my son Stephen training his son Stephen to prepare for a particular soccer game. And he was talking about the goals to be accomplished. I was so impressed by that. So I went to my son Joshua in his soccer game and basically said to him, son, let's talk about what some of the goals could be. What do we want to accomplish? You know, in his mind, primarily because of the culture, was what? Win. Okay? So we put that down as one of the goals. We want to win. Now, do you want to try your hardest? Do you want to do your best? Would that be another goal? Yeah? Yeah. What if you tried your hardest and achieved that goal even though you didn't win? Now, what about a team spirit? Do you want to pull together as a team instead of just having hot-dogging, grandstanding people that want all the attention? Do you want to assist people and be happy for them and be happy for the people that hardly ever have a chance to play so that they can develop some skills too and really hope for other people's successes? What would you think of that? Another goal. Have you ever gone to a game where you had fun till you lost, then it was no fun? What about having fun? And probably the most important goal of all is learn. To learn. What did you learn? What did the team learn? And so, since that time we started that process, we literally, after every game, go through the 5 goals. Did you try your hardest? Did you win? We lost. Did you try your hardest? I did. Did you work as a team? Did you try to assist? Were you happy for other people's successes? Yes, I felt good about that. Did you have fun, son? I did. It's a lot of fun. It's more fun, he said, when we win. Yeah, it is. But that doesn't mean you can't have fun when you lose. Did you learn? What did you learn? Do you think the team learned? What did the coach say to you afterwards? Look, you accomplished 4 of the 5 goals. That's tremendous, son. One time you won. You accomplished 5 of the 5 goals. And you learned. I mean, that'll help you better accomplish the next time you play.
Hey, keep the phones muted, guys. We got 10 more minutes of video.
Let's look at 4 dimensions of win-win. First, the character. I suggest these 3 fundamental characteristics. First, integrity. Integration around principles, around natural laws. Second, the fruit of integrity is maturity. Courage balanced with consideration. Self-confidence balanced with respect for others. Ego strength balanced with empathy. I and thou. Maturity. Third, abundance. An abundance mentality, an abundance mindset. To not interpret life as a competition, as a contest. I suggest both maturity and abundance, the abundance mentality, are the fruits of integrity. So habit 4, think win-win. Not win-lose, not lose-win. And not just win. Thinking just win. You know, some people get their metaphor of life from their high school football coach at halftime. And so when their spouse takes them on, what do? Fight. Compete. Win. Others will go for lose-win. Step on me again. Everyone else does. I'm a martyr. I'm no good. The dichotomy. You're either strong or you're weak. It's hard or it's soft. You win or you lose. Lose. Just the position of lose alone. I don't care whether you win or lose, I lose. This is how I see myself. Now, study the transactions. Look at every transaction as a moral one. There's a good and a bad side. You can take advantage, maybe. You can go for win-lose. You can really push your child and unkindly force your child or your employee who is so dependent upon you economically to do something that he or she doesn't want to do. Maybe either for ethical reasons or competency reasons or time reasons or whatever. You can do it, but you know you've overstepped the bound. Anytime you use authority or position out of your own vain ambition, you are, in a sense, taking a withdrawal from the emotional bank account, and your influence will be eroded away. Ultimately, you cannot maintain influence. The goose will die. Abundance comes from maturity, which comes from integrity. Integrity is the root. Anytime you violate something inside your conscience, a principle, see if it does not manifest itself in some way by exercising control or dominion upon another person in a sense that is too much. It's unkind, it's wrong, and you know it. Or perhaps you just capitulated and gave in and went for lose-win. The second dimension is the nature of the relationship itself. We call that the emotional bank account, the trust level. If you have paid the price personally and cultivated these attitudes of integrity and abundance and maturity, you'll be in a constant state of making deposits. But if you have not, you may talk win-win, but they won't necessarily feel it. And if you have a weak relationship, a win-lose relationship, that will unquestionably affect the third dimension. The third dimension has to do with the agreement that you have with that person, the commitment that you mutually make with each other. That's called a win-win transaction. The fourth dimension has to do with the systems and the processes. Are they also win-win? Did you establish a win-win approach to building the character, the relationship, and the agreements? Or are you laying on those good win-win things in win-lose ways? Do you say you value cooperation and reward competition? Strive to create the spirit where everyone can win without comparisons. How you do that is not an easy thing, but those who have done it are so much more productive than those who are always driving deep this normal distribution curve and rewarding only those at the top. In fact, I said to one, "Didn't you hire them all as winners?" He said, "Yeah. And now you sort them out?" The four dimensions of win-win. Can you remember what they are? First, character. Second, relationships. Third, agreements. And fourth, win-win systems, win-win processes. You know my green and clean story. My little son agreed in a family meeting to take care of the yard. Son, your job is green and clean. Has nothing to do with watering. That's a method. Let me show you what green looks like, son. Let's go over to our neighbor's house. That's the color we're after, son. Compare that with our yard, which I've been taking care of. Clean means let's clean up half of it. Now notice that compared to that. That's green and clean, son. 2 weeks to train this little kid in green and clean. Now, son, how you do that is up to you. I'd tell you how I do it if you want. How would you do it, Dad? I'd turn on the sprinklers. But you may want to use buckets or hose or spit all day long. All we care about is what, son? Green and clean. What's green look like? Good. What's clean? Good. It's your job, son. Guess who your boss is, son? Who? You boss yourself. Guess who your helper is? Who? I am. You boss me. I do? Many times I'm away. Many times I'm very busy with other things. But if I ever have any time, you need help, you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And guess who judges you, son? That's right, you judge yourself. How do you think you judge yourself, son? Green and clean. What's green now? What's clean now? Good. Is that a deal, son? You think about it for a day or two. Saturday. How do you feel, son? I'll do it. Do what? Green and clean. How? That's up to me. Who's your boss? I boss myself. Who judges you? I judge myself. How do you judge yourself? Green and clean. What's green? Good. Clean? Good. Who's your helper? You are if you have time. What if I don't have time? I got to do green and clean. Is that a deal, son? Deal was made. He did nothing. Two weeks of training. Nothing all that Saturday. All that Sunday. Monday. It's Tuesday morning. Going to work. Hot. Summer day. Burning up. Yellowing. Neighbor's yard. Green and clean. Manicured. Garbage strewn right down the side lawn from a Saturday night barbecue. Falling out the bottom of the sack, 3 feet from my car. I could rationalize a little away Saturday and Sunday, but Monday, this is inexcusable. I was ready to move to win-lose. Now, son, you get out there, you get over here, or I'm telling, but the moment you do, you kill the goose. You kill effectiveness. You go for efficiency. Yeah, he'll clean that up. And what happens tomorrow when you're not there? Bite your tongue. Reaffirm your purpose. Raise boys, not grass. I'll see what it looks like tonight. I could hardly wait to get home. Driving, going around the corner, there where my yard was. Tuesday afternoon. More cluttered, more yellow than ever. My son across the street, playing ball in the park. I was burning. We'd agree that we'd walk around the yard twice a week, and he'd show me how it's going. Hi, son. How you doing? I was faking it totally. Just fine, Dad. How's it going in the yard, son? Just fine, Dad. That was his accountability. Why? I violated our agreement. I knew that. That's not what we agreed to do. I bit my tongue. After dinner, why don't we walk around? You can show me how it's going. Before we got to the door, you could see his lip. By the time we got out to the front yard, just open bawling. Ma, it's so hard. I mean, what was hard? He hadn't done one single thing. I'll tell you what hard is moving up the level of initiative. If you nag people enough, work is the course of least resistance. You cannot hold people responsible for results if you supervise their methods. Anything you want me to do to help, son? Would you? What was our agreement? You said you'd help if you have time. I've got time. Just a minute, Dad. Ran in the house, came out with 2 sacks. He handed me one, he took one. It makes me vomit. You pick that up, you know. Just took that wet garbage, stuffed it in the sack, you know. That's when he signed the win-win performance agreement. And he only asked for help a couple more times that entire summer. It was his job. It takes time to set up the agreement and to reaffirm it. The tendency is to backslide on it when you see mistakes. Keep believing in the people, holding them accountable in the way agreed.
All right. Okay. All right, so I love that little story, Green and Clean. You guys like that story? Green and clean. Yeah, as we watch, we're going through all that. I can't help but think of the hundreds of people I've worked with over the years that some of them I've gotten right, others I've gotten wrong. And really, at the end of the day, so Covey puts in, there's 6 categories of human interaction, 6 paradigms, he calls them, of human interaction. You guys remember what they are? You don't have to unmute yourself. Just think of the 6. We're going to walk through this. And he also gave us the 2 variables of maturity. I thought that was really interesting how he defined maturity. Sharing my screen here. I hope you guys can all see this. He said maturity is a combination of consideration, so I just did a nice little Excel spreadsheet here, and courage. Okay, he said it's a combo of these two things. So my question is, somebody who's got low courage, okay, 0 to 10 on this axis, 0 to 10 on this axis. I've got little courage and I've got little consideration. Again, of the 6, we're going to cover these 6 paradigms here. This is where lose-lose lives. Lose-lose lives down here. And here's what Covey says about lose-lose. Lose-lose is when 2 win-lose people get together. That is, when 2 determined, stubborn, ego-invested individuals interact, the result will be lose-lose. Both will lose. Both will become vindictive and want to get back or get even, blind to the fact that murder is suicide, that revenge is a two-edged sword. Some people become so centered on an enemy, so totally obsessed with the behavior of another person, that they become blind to everything except their desire for that person to lose, even if it means losing themselves. Lose-lose is the philosophy of conflict and the philosophy of war. So there's lose-lose. Well, how about somebody who has low courage? Let's continue on the low courage piece, but they've got high consideration. They're very considerate of other people. Well, this is the lose-win paradigm. I lose, you win. Lose-win are for people who think lose-win are usually quick to please or appease. They seek strength from popularity or acceptance. All right. I don't see a lot of these in our business, but it's there. I mean, we've all at times had, been guilty of one of these 2 areas for sure. I see the one that comes out a little bit more would be this one. High courage, low consideration, and you guys probably already know this one. This is the win-lose paradigm. The one where most of us have grown up in this. Let's just go through what he says about win-lose. If I win, you lose. Most people have been deeply scripted in the win-lose mentality since birth. First and foremost important of the powerful forces at work is the family. When one child is compared, use that word a lot. You're like, stop comparing. When you compare, you're setting up a win-lose situation. The basis of such comparisons, people are into win-lose thinking. The academic world reinforces win-lose scripting. The normal distribution curve basically says that you get an A because someone else got a C. It interprets an individual's value comparing him or her to everyone else. People are not graded against their potential or against the full use of their present capacity. They're graded in relation to other people. Competition, not cooperation, lies at the core of the educational process. Cooperation, in fact, is usually associated with cheating. Another agent is law. We live in a litigious society. The first thing many people think about when they get into trouble is suing someone, taking them to court, winning at someone else's expense. Win-lose mentality. And then up here is the win-win mentality. It takes high courage, high consideration. We'll spend most of our time, talking about this, but let's just talk about another one that I see. And it could be categorized right here, right beside consideration in the same box. But it's called the win mentality. Here's the win mentality. This is interesting. People with the win mentality don't necessarily want someone else to lose. That's irrelevant. What matters is that they get what they want. A person with the win mentality thinks in terms of securing his own ends and leaving it up to others to secure theirs. You know, I wish we would have went through the 7 habits, or maybe started with habit 4 at the beginning of the pandemic. Because, you know, I remember saying early on, I'm like, hey, listen, with all this stuff going on, quarantining, everybody should have a conversation with their landlord right now, or their bank. If you own a home, you've got a convo with your mortgage lender. If you are a renter, you're having a conversation with your landlord, because you should be able to negotiate some free rent, or you know, that was said, that was stated. What I didn't think of is so many people were scripted with the win mentality. And the win mentality says, okay, so I got to win. I need some free rent. Okay, so let me have a conversation with my landlord. And you're walking in with the win mentality. Low consideration, high courage. And you're met with probably an unfavorable response. What I probably should have said looking back at it is, of course, you're walking in with a win-win mentality to your landlord. And what does that look like? So first of all, if you're going to have a win-win mentality, let's start with consideration. Let's just start with the consideration piece. Okay, so well, look at the person you're negotiating with. Look at it from their perspective. Well, you're going to go ask for free rent. I mean, what's in it for them? I mean, there's got to be a win for them, is there not? Well, if you can position the win for them, and the win for them is, hey, listen, is it possible I'm not paying rent for 2 months, and you just add 2 more months on the back end of our lease? Well, the fact that you're saying that to them shows them that you have a high amount of consideration for them, that you've already thought about life through their glasses. Hey, listen, I don't know what laws are going to change, whether you can write off some of those losses or things like that. I sure hope the government does do something like that for you, just in my position with my work and all this other stuff. So listen, I want to put you in a position where you can win. You know, I got no problem if you want to add a couple more months of terms onto my existing lease. Somebody walking in win-win in the terms of, again, just dealing with the landlord. And I've heard so many stories of businesses and personal people with their landlords walking in with win-win, who got exactly what they wanted in their negotiation. And I've heard so many stories of people walking in with that, well, I got to win. You know, like, if you got to win and you're walking in negotiating with I got to win mentality, and you're not win-win mentality, you tend to not get what you want. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, I want to keep sharing that screen, but only the win-win mentality. Oh, gee, I lost my, hang on, let me find it. There we go. Yeah, the win mentality. Again, people with the win mentality don't necessarily want someone else to lose. I don't want my landlord to lose, you know, but you know, that's irrelevant. Whether you win or lose, you know, you can take care of yourself. I got to take care of me. The winning mentality. But again, it doesn't get met with what you're looking for. So those are 5. Then the other agreement he has, there's 6 altogether. He mentioned this: win-win or no deal. Boy, do I love win-win or no deal. Basically means that if we can't find a solution that would benefit us both, we agree to disagree agreeably. No deal. Anything less than a win-win, I'm just going to read from the book and then go through a couple more things here about abundance. Anything less than win-win in an interdependent reality is a poor second best that will have impact on the long-term relationship. The cost of that impact needs to be carefully considered. If you can't reach true win-win, you very often better go for no deal. Think win-win is the habit of interpersonal leadership. It takes great courage as well as consideration to create these mutual benefits, particularly if we're interacting with others who are deeply scripted in win-lose. Character is the foundation of win-win, and everything else builds on that foundation. We covered that. Let me read some abundance mentality here. Abundance mentality, people with it, let's start with scarcity. People with a scarcity mentality have a difficult time sharing recognition and credit, power or profit, even with those who help in the production. They have a hard time being genuinely happy for successes of other people, even and sometimes especially members of their own family and close associates. The abundance mentality, on the other hand, flows out of a deep inner sense of personal worth and security. It is a paradigm that there is plenty out there and enough to spare for everybody. Public victory does not mean victory over other people. It means success in effective interaction that brings mutually beneficial results to everyone involved. Public victory means working together, communicating together, making things happen together, and even the same people couldn't make happen by working independently. And public victory is an outgrowth of an abundance mentality paradigm. Win-win is not a personal technique. It's a total paradigm of human interaction. It comes from a character of integrity, maturity, and abundance mentality. It grows out of high trust relationships. It embodies the agreements that effectively clarify and manage expectations as well as accomplishments. It thrives in support systems. All right, a lot of stuff going on there. I want to talk about this from like, just studying this chapter and looking at the business that we're working in. I don't think there's many people outside of our business on this call. So, you know, working with the Sidcore peeps, the paradigm, and I've stretched Cubbies a little bit here. The paradigm has to be of a true field leader. It is win, win, win. The customer has to win, the client has to win, and the rep has to win. So many times, again, as I study this chapter, we recruit a rep. And a rep who has the win mentality, I just want to win. I don't care if the customer wins, I don't care if the client wins. Well, that's a dangerous rep, as you could all imagine. That's a dangerous rep. You don't care if the customer wins. I mean, even as we go back into the world after the pandemic, I mean, my thought, as soon as we're back in the field, well, how are we received? Again, I have to have win-win-win mentality here. For the customers, how are we received? Are we a threat? How can we do everything we can to make sure that they feel safe and we're a positive experience for them? The customer has to win. The minute you have a business where you're not serving the customer is a business that's going to decline. I mean, look at Amazon's business model just as a case study. Amazon built their entire business on a customer experience, starting with books, and now they sell everything. But it's all about that customer. And if you're a vendor on Amazon's site and you treat that customer wrong, well, you're removed. You're removed from their platform. You can't play on the Amazon game. They're all about the customer. Okay, so no problem. Most people are all about the customer. I'm okay, my customer's got to win, no sweat. Well, your client has to win. You got to serve your client. Well, how does the client win? It's very simple in our business. They need profitable, sticky customers and brand enhancement. That people's association with the brand is, oh man, what a great AT&T rep, man. They like AT&T more after your human interaction with them. That deposit for that brand is worth a fortune. A profitable, sticky customer. They keep buying again and again and again. Oh, yes. You serve the client and the client wins. That is a beautiful thing. And then the rep wins. Like those three things, they all have to go together. So again, as you guys mature in the business, again, funny, we're talking about the definition of maturity as high consideration and high courage. You know, hey, listen, you're going to mature in your career as well too. You have to have the mindset. You have to have the paradigm of win, win, win. You can't have the paradigm of just, I got to take care of the rep. I mean, it's an honorable thing that you want to take care of your guys, but the best way to take care of your guys is to take care of the customer and take care of your client, and then you'll take care of your guys. Win, win, win. It has to be there. It has to be there. I've been around long enough where I've even been to client meetings where it's not win, win, win. And you can imagine the tension. It doesn't work like that. Everybody has to win. It's neat working with our clients today because our clients care about the reps. They also need the same paradigm. Of course, they want profitable, sticky customers, but of course they care about the people as well too. And they want to see the people doing well, and they care about the money that the reps make. They care about the experience. So both parties with a win-win-win mentality, it's going to be a great, beautiful, long-term relationship. I want to shift gears. I'm going to open this up to some questions. I want to think about building a team. I want to think about the win-win as you're building a crew. What's the win for your teammates being part of your business? Again, let's think about this high consideration and high courage. Let's start on the flip side of what's in it for them. Let's start with high consideration. Instead of let's just start with high courage, what's in it for you? What's in it for them? Well, a couple things. And again, this book really helped me out because I started asking myself that question a lot. I know what's in it for me to build the crew. I know what's in it for me. I want to know what's in it for you. I need to spend more time in this area. What's in it for you? I started reading some John Wooden books early on in my career. And it really helped shape this win-win mentality. In a lot of these books, a lot of these testimonials, players at UCLA, he was a coach at UCLA, they would say that they learned more about marriage from Coach Wooden than they did about basketball. I'm like, wow, that's a pretty bold statement. Coach Wooden was all about developing young boys into mature men. He knew statistically about 3% will go pro and go in the NBA, and 97% will not. It's not like he put all of his focus and energy on those 3%, the Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's, Bill Walton's, and forgot about the other 97%. Interesting, I'm bringing those stats to you because, like, well, it's not like everybody on your team is going to go on to become an owner in this business and do these big, grand entrepreneurial things. Let's just say 3% do and 97% don't. Well, let's get back to win-win and high consideration. What's in it for your people if they don't become an owner and they work for you or work with you? You need to answer that question. I mean, so I started as I'm answering that question myself. I'm like, well, the answer I want to give is the rich experience. Like, what is this rich experience that I'm providing? Let's just say somebody works with me for a year and leaves, and it's got to be a win. They can't work with me for a year and they feel like they lost. This can't be a win-lose. Or it could even be a lose-lose. Some people look at it that, well, wasted. The leader could say, I wasted my time. I wasted my time working with you. Person says, oh, I wasted my time working with this company. Talk about a lose-lose paradigm. That sounds like a bunch of gripes online. Sounds like some one-star reviews about to happen. There should never be a losing situation if it was a rich experience. So how can the experience be worth A fortune. Well, again, a few things. Weekly goal sheets. There's a rich experience in that. 7 habits kind of training with new people getting onboarded. Can you build their skill set and their resume and make them more marketable for the next company they go work with? If you can do that, whether the 3% go on to work with you in the long haul or the 97% turnover and move on, you're winning with 100% of the people. That's what you want. You want to win with everybody. Nobody joining your team is a waste of your time. That's an invested individual. I mean, I can't, there used to be a time, I don't do it anymore. I used to, and I really took this to another degree. On my website years ago, I had a button on top that said people. You click on people. And then it gave you 2 categories. And maybe some of you even try this out. It worked for me, and maybe it'll work for you. On the 2 buttons, current employees, ex-employees. Like what? You click on the current employees, and here's what the current roster has to say about working here. And of course, they're all saying good stuff. Okay, well, I don't want to click on that. Of course, all the people working here are going to say good things about the business. Let me click on the ex-employees. What do they have to say? And I showcase this long list of testimonials of ex-employees and what they said about the experience. I don't know why I don't do that anymore. Maybe I thought it was getting a little cheesy or something after a while, because it got long. It became a really long list. I wanted ex-employees to give me a testimonial. What did you learn? Was it a good experience? Was this a waste of your time? No, Jamie, thank you so much. This is great. Can you give me a quick little email, 3 sentences on it? I want to showcase you on the website. And then give me a testimonial 5 years from now and tell me how the experience working with me played out in your future life. And boy, have I heard some crazy testimonials in my time. Crazy testimonials. I mean, that's win-win. That's high consideration. How do you win? Let's get into your courage. Well, you win, obviously, if they do well, you win. I don't have to spell that out. But what if they don't do well? How do you win? Well, here's ultimate, I mean, the best way I could describe this, I read a book years ago called Sacred Hoops by Phil Jackson. I'm a big Phil Jackson fan. And of course, with the Last Dance going on right now, I'm a very happy guy. I just thought I'd throw in that little plug there. Beautiful show happening on ESPN. But Phil Jackson wrote a book, Sacred Hoops. So funny. What did Phil do between the time he was a player in the NBA to the time he was a coach with with the Chicago Bulls? You don't have to answer it. The book Sacred Hoops will tell you. Well, he was a coach in the Puerto Rican Basketball League for 5 years, is what he was doing. In his book, he describes these times when, he's outdoor arenas. They're playing in outdoor arenas. I mean, talk about a bush league. Fan didn't like a call the ref made, so a fan shot a ref in the middle of a game. I'm sure Phil is thinking to himself, this isn't what I signed up for. I didn't go from an NBA athlete to this bush league coach, but this is where I learned. This is my stomping ground. He has a time where he describes he was negged out. He goes into the locker room in the dressing room, and there's a tarantula, walking around on the bench beside him. I mean, again, and it's not like he's got paid a lot of money. I even want to say that the Pats, the Patriots, who am I thinking of? Bill Belichick. His first gig was with the Cleveland Browns for $10,000 a year, studying quarterbacks, about 100 hours a week, $10,000 a year. Again, what's the win? Okay, I don't want to talk about what's the win when your team wins. That's too easy. What's the win when your team loses? That's the part that takes some thought. And again, using Phil Jackson, in Puerto Rico for 5 years, Phil had superstar athletes to work with, Puerto Rican level, right? We're not talking about, he didn't have Michael Jordan playing in Puerto Rico, but he had really good guys. And he had a couple crazy guys, I'm sure, too. All of which prepared him for the dynamics of a guy like Michael Jordan, a Dennis Rodman guy, again, in his book, Sacred Hoops. I mean, Rodman would show up sometimes 20 minutes before tip-off, reeking like alcohol. And Phil still had the guts to start him. Phil knew what he was doing, starting a guy like Dennis Rodman, instead of benching him and treating him the way you treat a guy like Jordan, all this other stuff. Those 5 years in Puerto Rico were so valuable because that's what taught him. Those rich experiences as a coach is what made him a superstar in Chicago and Los Angeles. I've also seen John Wooden interviewed. Everybody gave him praise for his last 12 years of coaching at UCLA. He won 10 national championships in a 12-year span. And everybody talked about those 12 years. And Coach would always be very clear when he's being interviewed, hey, listen, I had a 26-year career. It wasn't a 12-year career. I had a 26-year career. How come none of you are talking about those first 14 years? You think that those first 14 years weren't a valuable part of who I am and who I became? Like, I love some of my players in those early years as much as a guy like Lou Alcindor. So again, you win from the richness of the experience. So I would really highly encourage everybody to really play that out. Like, again, in the world of win-win, if that's really the game we're going for here, and it's comprised of two elements, consideration and courage. There's got to be thought on how your people around you can win. I mean, if you're obsessed with win-win, it's interesting. If you're always under that paradigm, negotiating, you'll just find so much favor in how you guys set up deals, agreements, developing people. Like, there's no other way to play the game. It just takes a lot of thought, a lot of reflection on how do you make sure the people around you win. Again, even if they're not winning as defined by making money or promotions, but how do they win even when they quote unquote lose? If you can figure that out, I think you're setting yourself up to be an unbelievable team builder. All right, so I'm going to open up for some questions. I did all that in 80 minutes. We got about 10 minutes left, then I'll give you your homework assignment. Let me check the chat. Let me see what's going on in chat. Oh, here's a guy who worked with me 20 years ago. Mehdi's on the call. I don't see Mehdi. I am winning now because I've known you almost 20 years. Win-win for sure on my end, and thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Mehdi. I appreciate that. Casey to everyone, amen. I like that too. All right, what questions we have here?
Hey, Jamie. So as I'm team building, or back before the coronavirus happened, I was like, I noticed that I used to baby my, like, I was like a mother to my people I was training, and I felt like I was like way too controlling. What is the like the fine line between, like, you know, being a mother, like really just being on their ass all the time, to like just letting them go and letting them like spread their wings and do their own thing?
Yeah, I think you'll find a healthy blend with, experience. I mean, I would kind of defer more to Ken Blanchard dialogue with you there with the situational leadership of S1, S2, S3, S4. Ken Blanchard would say, well, if the guy doesn't have a track record of performance, right? If the guy's not performing, you do need to provide high direction, right? Now the question is, well, the guy also is really shaky in their commitment. Okay, well, now They're lacking commitment and they're lacking competence. You need to give them high support and high direction. So, you know, now I think where a lot of people don't want direction, or you're mothering me and you're micromanaging me, is if they feel that they are competent. Okay. If I'm competent and you're in my grill and you're like, Jamie, did you do this? I'm like, yeah, I did this, man. Leave me alone. Well, then you're making a coaching mistake there. Somebody who believes they have high level of competence doesn't want direction, and they don't need mom telling them what to do. So again, I just kind of defer to like a situational leadership doc on that. I love that material. I think we could do a whole series on that stuff as well too, because it really does simplify coaching if you properly diagnose somebody and give them the right coaching style. And the two coaching styles are a combination of direction and support. But I remember when I first took that course, I had this one girl I was coaching a lot, and just we were butting heads all the time. She thought she was competent. I thought she wasn't. You'd think the numbers would do all the talking, there'd be no debate, but there was debate. And the book taught me that, well, whatever the student believes they are is what you have to default your coaching style to. I stopped offering direction, and the relationship started to improve big time. I'm like, man, I should have read this book like a year ago. So again, it's not a one size fits all. Some people want that direction. Somebody who diagnoses themselves saying, listen, my competence sucks. I want you to mom me here a little bit. You know, like I have a weekly accountability call with an individual. Like I like accountability. I like somebody inspecting me, but that's me. I know other people that don't. And so if they think they're competent, they're not going to want that from you. So again, I'm just going to defer to that book.
Okay, thank you. So in the 7 Habits, Stephen Covey talks about stewardship, delegation. How can you use stewardship, delegation while team building?
How can you use stewardship and delegation? I mean, you're constantly delegating things. I mean, again, I'm going to go back to a situational leadership. When somebody's D4 at, let's say, sales, right? Somebody's D4 at sales. I'm highly competent and I'm highly committed. Well, the appropriate thing to do is to start delegating, give them new tasks, give them new things to start working on. So as people move into D4, you're constantly going to find new stuff for them to do. Hey, I want you to teach the new guys this. Hey, I want you to start learning this new thing. So, but the timing's got to be right. You got to make sure that they're succeeding in the current task at hand, and then you start delegating new things. Again, back to a Ken Blanchard answer for you.
Jamie, one thing that, thank you for.
All the way from Argentina, Lalo.
Hey, although I'm not in Argentina right now, but pretty close to it. On the clean and green example, how he delegates, and it's only about the result. And then everything in between, there's not a whole lot of direction after the kid takes control. And I have such a hard time of doing that. Just focus on the result and let them do.
Yeah.
I think that's part of delegation, right?
Are you talking about with your kids, or are you talking about in business, or both?
Both.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, I think human nature. I mean, I do this kind of stuff with my kids. Like, you know, I'm my kid's assistant on so many things. You know, thanks to like Stephen Covey, right? Like, who's the boss? You're the boss. Who's your assistant? Dad, you're my assistant. They love having me be their assistant. I like doing this though, even with like people that I work with at the office. Hey, you own this project. This is your project. Anything you need me to do, I'm your guy. So I'm your assistant, but you're the boss. I think people like to own things, right? And so if it's a clear definition of what success looks like, I mean, sometimes, as you know, dealing with the client a lot, well, what does success look like? I mean, what do you want? How do you win? And if there's clarity on that, okay, good. So there's your green and clean right there. At least we know what winning looks like. Then it's a matter of getting people motivated, owning initiatives, and you offering assistance and having the the check-in points like Stephen did twice a week with his kid. Okay, walk me through the yard, son. Show me what you've got. But yeah, I mean, I do that all the time. I'm the assistant to the head of garbage department in my household.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I'm the second in command of garbage.
Quick question, Jamie. Talking about coaching them owning the initiative. So how, like, what do you use, or how do you direct them?
Give me an example. I'm not sure.
Well, if people are not taking initiative, and then it's good for them, they should be developing, learning, but they're not like really taking initiative on that.
Yeah, that might be just more of a crucial conversation. I mean, some people might not know that that's important to you to take initiative. Some people might think, well, I'm hired on to do my job. At my last job, I was taking initiative and I got reprimanded for it. So I'm not going to do that here. I'm not going to overstep my boundaries. So to me, it's just more of that's just a crucial conversation to dive in with somebody like, hey, listen, I like you. I think you have lots of potential. I'd like you to take more initiative. And again, we could run a whole series on a book called Crucial Conversations also, which goes through that. I mean, how do you engage properly where you're not, breaking the trust with somebody, where you can, change behaviors and move in a positive direction. It just requires a crucial convo. So again, a little bit different. But I like to be clear in the behaviors that I want. I mean, isn't that kind of what, it's funny, I had a conversation, a few of you were with me on it, with Ken Blanchard. So he gave his outline on how he runs a morning meeting. I found this fascinating. I'm using my terms now, but he basically runs a staff meeting every day for his guys at the Ken Blanchard company. I'm like, oh, what do your meetings look like? He acknowledges the behaviors that they value. So in other words, he goes through the high rollers. He gives praise. He just loves to shower praise. I caught this guy doing something right. I caught this guy doing something right. I caught this guy doing something right. That's awesome. And then he goes through, so again, he's really just empowering those behaviors, and just kind of letting everybody know these are the behaviors that we want. Then he talks something about the business, whatever's going on. And then he always finishes off on an inspiring thought that he has that eventually turns into a book, is kind of how he's done it. But again, whatever behaviors you're shouting at, I mean, John Maxwell always kind of puts it this way, like, a shepherd has, let's say, 100 sheep. Okay, whatever the best behaved sheep is, you put a bell around that sheep's neck. You draw attention to that sheep. The other sheep are following that one sheep. So again, a good shepherd draws attention to the best behaved sheep. That's how John Maxwell puts it. I've never been a shepherd, I don't know, but I've seen that, right? One sheep's got a bell. I always wondered that. One sheep's got a bell, and how does one shepherd somehow keep control of 100 sheep? So you keep drawing attention, you keep shouting out the behaviors that you want, and eventually your people will give you those behaviors. Do the opposite and put attention on the behaviors you dislike. Stephen Covey said it. Sometimes nagging, how did he word it? Something about nagging can be work can be the path of least resistance. Like, it's like, oh, I better get the job done because nagging is worse. I mean, so you don't want to do that. You want to draw attention to the behaviors that you're looking for. Again, those winning behaviors. But again, great chapter. I know I'm a minute over. A great chapter. A lot of paradigm shifting happening with this one. It's not so nuts and bolts like the values. Let me think that through. And then my calendar and big rocks. I mean, you're getting into the integration of people stuff here, right? Like, gee, win-win. Gee, if I had win-win dealing with my landlord, I wonder what that would have looked like. That might have been interesting. That might have been interesting. But you'll find with this win-win mentality at every interaction you're having, I mean, you know, you can just make it a more pleasant experience by always considering you're just a win-win individual, and you just don't operate any other way. I mean, you do that, I mean, I just find you're going to have just richer relationships with the people that you're working with and the people that you're dealing with, the agreements you have around you. All right, so here's your homework assignment. As, again, much easier than the last one. Just answer this question on your own. But what are the areas of your life that are lacking win-win? Like, what are they? We all have them. And if those areas aren't win-win, what are they? They could be win. Yeah, in that area, it's just about me winning. How many times I've seen a guy try to get promoted to assistant management who never got there because the guy just had this win mentality. I just got to get there. I got to get there. I got to win. Okay, so what areas of your life are lacking win-win? And if it's not win-win, what is it? Yeah, there's only 6 paradigms. It's every interaction is one of 6 paradigms. And your second homework assignment is read habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. By far the weakest of my 7 habits that I get to talk about next week. So that should be lots of fun for me. Maybe not as much fun for you, but lots of fun for me. So that's your homework assignment. That's it. Nice and easy, light. I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Thanks for being on the call, you guys.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jamie.